Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Time for another convention, as it turns out. Yeah, Democratic National Convention started yesterday. I should have speechified what I was bringing to you this morning. Good morning, everybody. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit or Obama-ish, or maybe I'm Josh Shapiro when I do that. Good morning. I don't really know how to speechify this beyond that. Let me tell you this. Let me be clear. Right? We can at least be that way with the Obama message. Okay, he didn't speak yesterday. Lots of speakers last night, many of whom I tragically did not get to see. However, as I was writing up this morning's warning post that the show is going live, that I put up over at Daily Kos. Perhaps you've heard of it. And just getting ready to write that thing up and putting it together last night and realizing, convention. Well, usually I don't actually go and, watch such things. You know how I am with the set play pieces. I don't often sit down and watch the speeches, but as it turns out, as I was writing the thing late at night, of course, not getting any sleep or preparing for anything or anything like that, I realized that Joe Biden, was speaking on a Monday, which is not usually the slot that they'll give to someone in his position. It's, actually, I don't know. Not an outgoing president. I guess certainly not the position that he had anticipated at the beginning of the summer that he would be speaking in. But, of course, circumstances have changed. But I think a great ending to the first night, and I realized he was still on and speaking, and I could watch some live of the speeches that everybody would be talking about the next day. The other speeches that everyone's talking about that I didn't get to see live would include Hillary Clinton apparently made a terrific speech. Great speeches also, or well-reviewed, well-received speeches from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whose speech I did get to see in, YouTube clip or something like that. And, let's see, Jamie Raskin was mentioned, and several others who had terrific showings, apparently, and made a splash during their time on the stage. Jasmine Crockett, another name widely mentioned as having given a kind of a breakout speech. So that seems interesting, too. I haven't had a chance to take a look at that one, but I'm going to go back and review that one. I'll probably, when Greg comes on, I'll just go watch speeches, and Greg will take care of the news. Yes, that's right. Today is Tuesday, and ordinarily Greg does not come on to take care of the news. In fact, we usually wait until the last segment to take care of actual news when we talk to Joan McCarter, who I believe is still on tap, although who knows what the craziness is like at Daily Kos on a busy political morning. But I don't know. I'll check around. I don't think I've gotten any indication that there's anything getting in the way. Only thing getting in the way up in Connecticut is the official report of something like 12.5 inches of rain over the weekend, which apparently did not break the state record. As it turns out, the state record came during a tropical storm or hurricane some years ago. I got that record along with the news from Greg that he would like to come on today because it is the morning after the first evening of the Democratic National Convention. Great speeches were given, and he'd like to have a few minutes or, maybe an hour to talk about these things. And this would be fantastic because, we need it. I don't sit down for these things. I hate sitting there and watching political speeches. Although you do miss out when somebody gives a really fantastic one live, and you miss out on being a part of the live experience. But we'll get the next best thing, I think. And in fact, here's Greg now. And if the speech writers are the same, we could fill the entire hour. I think it would be very easy to do. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Good morning. So I was laughing yesterday as I was watching these speeches.
The friends were just out of frame.
Each time I watched a little segment that I thought was really good, I thought to myself, this is great. David's probably not watching it. It's really, really good.
It's great that I'm not watching it, really. I get the highlights later on, but I mean, I don't know what it is, but I know we need to take care of kids, and there need to be fewer shootings, and we have allies around the world, and we need jobs. I get it. But
so I'm going to give you my reactions, abundant reactions, but there's one clip out of the many clips that I want to play, and it's not even from yesterday.
Oh, all right. Well, let me start getting ready on that.
So to get ready on that, scroll down and get to the first big black X that you could see.
Okay. Well,
let's see.
It's
53 seconds of Steve Kerr.
Oh, yes, another name that got a lot of mention. All right, the first front thing from Twitter thingy. Yeah. The first one?
Yeah.
All right.
It says 53 seconds total. Steve Kerr, 1997.
What? Okay. Sure. All right. Oh, you know what? Let me, it'll take a second. It comes up. I gotta pause it and rewind it,
Yeah. And while you do that, let me just explain. Steve Kerr's an athlete.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
People may know him currently as an NBA coach.
All right.
And a very good motivational speaker. But back in the day, in the 90s, he played for a team, which was known then and now as the Chicago Bulls.
Okay. We know about them. And this was in
1997.
But they gave the speech yesterday in Honolulu, right? Or it was also Chicago.
What I'm trying to set up for you is that Steve Kerr is known in Chicago.
Yes. All right. Good.
Okay. And he was the point guard, that is to say, he directed the team.
Good
and
point.
A fellow you may have heard of, Michael Jordan, was the shooting guard.
Yes.
And they were a great pair.
Okay.
And in this particular game, it's the playoffs, championships.
Playoffs?
And he's playing, Steve Kerr is, with Michael Jordan against the Jazz.
He's not per se against Jazz.
He's not against Jazz, but he wants to beat Jazz.
We see what okay, right. This is the team we're talking about.
It's the team we're talking about.
The aptly named Utah Jazz.
So it's a tie game.
All right.
There's 5 seconds left.
Very exciting.
In that era, the ball, everybody in the world knows, is going to go to Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And it
probably
does.
True.
He's going to take the last shot. Because he always takes the last shot. He loves taking the last shot. He lives through these moments.
He was a professional basketball player.
He was a professional basketball player who tended to win championships.
All right. So it was a good choice.
So it turns out that he gets the ball, but he's triple teamed.
Oh, my.
Really can't get the shot off.
Oh, goodness.
So he lays it off to Steve Kerr, who's waiting, knowing this is going to happen. And Steve Kerr was the most accurate three-point shooter of his day.
Wow.
And this wasn't a three-point shot. It was a little closer. But nonetheless, with like a second left, he takes the shot. It goes in, doesn't, hit rim. It's all net. And the Bulls win.
Sounds like a moment.
That was Steve Kerr winning the game, not Michael Jordan. Many contemporaries of the day said, if you had one shot with 1 second left, actually the person you want to take it is Steve Kerr because he's just such a good shooter. Okay. That's what he was as an athlete playing. Then he's a coach and motivational speaker. And this clip that I'm playing for you is a press conference that they had after that game.
Okay.
And he's describing the play. And he is making Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson, the coach, just roll on the floor laughing, literally roll on the floor laughing.
Oh.
So can you play the clip?
I can, and we'll adjust the volume as necessary. I haven't tested it yet. But here we go. Okay, right from the beginning. Come on now.
Asking me about the shot the other night.
Michael in traffic to Kerr.
And there have been some misconceptions about what actually happened. I wanted to clear it up.
Oh, my.
When we called timeout with 25 seconds to go, we went into the huddle.
Okay. So from the press conference down to game footage, it's loud.
Yeah, they're dispersing it. But remember, Steve Kerr is this young kid.
Yeah.
So
all right,
going.
You can see. So you drop 20 years off of them for a second, go back to the game. All right, they're getting ready. It's in the timeout. They're talking.
Thumbs up. I'll be ready. And Phil told Michael, he said, Michael, I want you to take the last shot. And Michael said, Phil, I don't feel real comfortable in these situations. So maybe we ought to go in another direction. Why don't we go to Steve? So I thought to myself, well, I guess I got to bail Michael out again.
Here's Jordan. Did not have the shot. Kerr does it.
The shot went in, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And that's it. That's the end of the press conference. He has always been a great speaker, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Nice.
And Chicago knows him like the back of their hand. So he was one of the speakers last night, and I just want to give you an idea of why it was so meaningful to have Steve Kerr get up there and do this.
Okay.
Now, Steve Kerr is not only a great athlete, and that was really funny, but he's a great coach.
I can imagine.
Like another coach who's on the team.
Where?
You know, like Coach Walls.
All right.
And so one of the many things that Steve Kerr brought to this is some humor, a deft touch. He's known by the crowd. He's known by the city. People will watch him. And,
all right.
As we all know.
Yeah, I guess they did.
It used to be that doctors were the most respected profession, not after the pandemic. Now it's coaches.
Well, that's not helping. Yes. Is it coaches, really?
Well, pretty much.
They're the highest paid at their universities, so I guess so.
Everybody loves coaches.
Sure. I mean, there's some crappy ones.
So that was one of the
and
many,
that's an American pastime, hating
little
your coach,
small touches that the messaging people just got right yesterday.
Yeah.
Short.
I mean,
and a little long. People were complaining about that. When I say complaining, I mean the pundits.
I liked it.
Because I liked it, but, you know, it kept them up past their bedtime. They were wondering what Joe Biden would be like after 11 p.m. He showed them. He didn't get on till 11:30, which, by the way, is fairly typical.
I mean, that's supposed to be when people
11 o'clock,
are watching the news.
And by the way, not everybody
weird.
lives on the East Coast. So
well,
for everybody else in the country, it was fine.
Yeah, all right. There's other countries.
But, hey, Pennsylvania's Eastern time, and they should have seen, and it's a complete misunderstanding. It's like the people who say, oh, look how much money they're putting on television. Who watches television?
Well, that's an issue.
These speeches are going to be split up into little clips, and they're going to be played on social media all day today and forever.
Really doesn't matter when it was given.
And it really doesn't matter when it was given. That's exactly right. But, I go back.
Except that
I
got
to the years, I don't know, 2007, 2008. You know those years.
You would make the sound effects like
Wayback Machine. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine, Mr. Peabody. So if you go back to 2007,
yes,
a couple of different reasons for doing so.
I can think of none.
In 2007, there was a yearly Coast meeting you and I were at together.
That was a good year then. Yeah,
we were at the McCormick Center.
Right.
We met Hillary, we met Barack, we met, a whole bunch of other people. Chris Dodd, who had presidential hair, I probably get
all of
that one.
Right.
But just for logistics, because you brought this up on the show yesterday, that was at the McCormick Center.
Right.
The McCormick Center is the secondary site for the DNC this year.
Well,
if you're doing a platform meeting or officials meetings, it's going to be at the McCormick Center.
All right. I mean, that was an enormous
the equivalent
place.
of the Javits Center, just this huge cavernous place.
And
the actual delegates' speeches, the stuff you saw on TV last night, that's at the United Center, the equivalent of Madison Square Garden in New York.
Yeah, they'd now like to do these in stadium settings.
This is where the Chicago Bulls play. Did I mention Chicago Bulls before on this?
You mentioned Utah Jazz.
Steve Kerr was the perfect fit for this event, and that's one of the reasons why he was speaking.
How did they get in touch with? How did he make known to them that he was willing to? I'd be curious about the backstory.
I guess you apply. You goes, hey, I'm available. I happen to be in Chicago that day. So,
I guess that's interesting to step up and say, I want to speak, or who approached who. It would be very interesting to find out, just in terms of like, hey, that's a really good eye. Did a consultant say we need that guy? That's a much more
interesting story than whether or not Joe Biden started speaking at 11:30. Which is what the pundits were perseverating on. So let me just give you some other pundit reaction. I was watching Tim Miller and the Bulwark people, the Never Trumpers, and they said, it was okay. It was fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Hillary, fight song, blah. But hey, this is for the partisans. I get that. We're not the partisans.
Remember when?
It was all right. We'll see what happens the rest of the week. And Timothy McBride writes on Twitter, beware the pundit brain version of the Democratic convention as everyday Americans tune in to watch Kamala Harris, which is not going to be till Thursday, receive her party's nomination. They should trust what they see with their own eyes, especially as DC's chattering class tries to gaslight them.
Yeah.
So don't worry about who did what, where, when, and how. The proof of the pudding is going to be when we get the numbers later today, maybe, and for the next few days on how many people watched. Just for perspective, this is what I bring to the show for you. I don't know stuff, so I look things up. There were 18 million people that watched the first day of the RNC this year, 14 million the second day, 18 million the third. I don't care about the fourth day. We'll compare that when Kamala goes.
I guess so. I mean, why?
But
do it now?
That's the baseline for how many people watched yesterday.
Millions.
And what they saw Ralph Warnock. They saw AOC. They saw Jasmine Crockett. You mentioned it, a rising star. The bench was so deep they had to cut James Taylor and Grace Meng, who was from the New York area, down toward Long Island, Brooklyn and Long Island, and she's a rising star in the party too. She's the one that campaigned for Tom Suozzi and won it for him with the Asian American in George Santos's old district. So that's why she was on there. But there was no room. It was running late. And there was so much applause and there were so many great lines, Jamie Raskin and other people, that things ran late. And as people pointed out, as the pundits were complaining about, well, we're not going to get Biden before 11 o'clock. Who cares before it's 11 o'clock?
I mean,
well, we go to bed. Well, America doesn't.
I don't know. That's traditional news hour. I mean, I don't really understand.
Well, you
that.
want it on the nightly news. A perfectly choreographed thing has him on at 10:30, so you have a snippet of what he said at 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
but course. That's not how the world works anymore.
One, the 11 o'clock news is a bit of a dinosaur thing, and honestly, it's actually cut out for an audience that is in bed, which is a little weird. But, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, by the way, to say after the end of the local news, stay tuned for our continuing coverage of the Democratic National Convention. President Joe Biden speaks next.
Yes, exactly. And so the networks carried it, and you got your snippets, and that was all fine. Now, here's some other information from the relevant things around the convention. New poll out today. New poll in Nebraska, 2nd District, Omaha. That's the one electoral vote we need to make 270 after Kamala Harris sweeps the blue wall, 3 swing states in the Midwest.
Yeah, all right.
A conservative pollster found VP Kamala Harris leading former President Donald Trump 50-42 in blood red Nebraska swing 2nd District. And this matters because a stray electoral college vote is up for grabs. So that's what the Nebraska Examiner said this morning. The reason that I caught it is because I'm looking at the newspapers for various and sundry reactions to how the convention went. And it's all, United in the United Center kind of stuff.
All right.
So they got the convention they wanted. They got the coverage in the newspapers that they wanted. And, basically that's how it works.
Yeah, I see no problems with it. The complaints I see this morning are mostly people saying, the pundits are weird, right? They were, boo-hoo, he was on late. I don't think that's really a big issue. And then of course, there's the fact checking. And apparently they're taking everything super, super literally and still getting it wrong. But I guess the big one that people are complaining about, Hillary Clinton makes mention or says, well, Kamala Harris won't be writing any love letters to dictators. And
there's that one.
Yeah, there was. So that's the one that everybody is going crazy about because the fact checkers.
But the other one was Joe Biden said that Donald Trump would not accept the results of the election unless he won. Right. And the fact checkers were all over that and said he didn't say that he wouldn't accept it. He just said that he wouldn't
accept it. Yeah, right.
He'd accept it.
Right.
He didn't say he'd reject it. I mean, he just said he wouldn't accept it.
Right.
And that one.
Talk about your stenography. Like, come on, you can't interpret that.
But that one sparked people saying, you know what? Yeah. These fact-checking columns are just opinion columns with a different name.
Yeah, it really did. I think they lost a lot of a lot of respect. I mean, I didn't have a great deal left, but a lot of people who were, regular Americans, if they saw the speeches and then saw the fact check, are probably like, yeah, this fact check stuff is stupid. Forget it. Between that one and the Kamala Harris won't write any love letters to dictators. Well, there's no evidence that Trump actually wrote any love letters.
Right. We didn't have one with perfume on it. Of course, we don't know because he took it with him to Mar-a-Lago. I'm not sure he ever returned them.
Now, the fact checking of the fact checking has been, here's the Washington Post saying that Bob Woodward saw the letters back and forth. And so there were definitely, or we reported that there were letters from Trump to Kim. Were they love letters? Well, so I mean, I guess there's still room for doing that. Although I have also seen people point out, well, I mean, if that's the level on which you're going to do the fact checking, Hillary didn't say Trump wrote any letters. She just said that Kamala wouldn't.
And this one is from Amy Gardner from the Washington Post.
Okay.
And I'm going to read it to you verbatim.
All right.
Donald Trump says he will refuse to accept the election result if he loses again, Biden said, but that's not true. Trump just hasn't said he would accept it.
Okay. Basic premise of the election.
Said the only way he loses is if the Democrats cheat. So, Amy, what's your point?
Yeah, I don't know. Those words haven't come out of his mouth, but Kovfefe has. Well, that wasn't out of his fingers, I guess. I don't know. That's pretty remarkably dumb. That's all right. Fine.
Fine. So Hillary gives a great speech, a fiery speech, probably the best one of her career. Mm-hmm. The only notable thing to me in there is that the lock him up chant started, and unlike Kamala and Walz, she didn't tamp it down. She just smiled. She didn't go with it. She didn't chant with them, but she did very little to tamp it down.
Yeah.
I think she should have, but who cares?
Well, yeah, exactly. She's not running for anything.
She's not running for anything, right? And you know what? Neither is Joe Biden, so who cares what time his speech started?
Sure, that's true,
He's not the nominee.
It was a good choice for a first night, I think. They sometimes
had so
slot
many
them later.
Speakers. The reason it ran late is because if you go over to the Republican side, nobody wanted to talk, or they wouldn't want them to talk. Where's George W. Bush? Where's his wife? Where are other people like Ryan? They don't want them.
No. That's true. It's a very weird.
Harris, so of course it's going to be tighter.
Yeah. That's right. Yes. Everyone also complained that Jake Tapper's first immediate reaction was apparently, well, the Republicans ran a tighter ship. Well, they're dictators.
Well, hello. It's easy when you run a dictator and you only have 4 people speaking.
Yeah. Right. Well, tighter ship, but they did sink the ship. So, it was well run. We sank on time. That's the good news.
Now, here's an interesting tidbit, which, given our ongoing discussion about things, I just found really interesting.
I love things.
Back in July, the Democratic Socialists of America withdrew its conditional endorsement of Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't recall if we covered that or covered that.
Wait a minute. Who did what?
Democratic Socialists of America announced
it
had withdrawn its conditional endorsement of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Cover it, but I did see it. And I said, let's not cover this. The
congressional representative stance on Israel and Palestine had cost her the socialist organization's endorsement.
No way to answer yes for these guys. Okay.
Okay, so that's back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, a fellow who's worked with Bernie, who's worked with Uncommitted Movement, his name is Jack Califano.
Okay. I mean,
posted,
I'm not committed to that
after
name.
The speech, over the coming years, AOC will become one of the most important politicians of our lifetime. And will probably want nothing to do with the DSA.
Yeah.
We can call her a sellout, or we can ask a harder question. Why does the greatest political talent of our lifetime consider us a liability?
Or, I guess another way of putting that, why would the greatest political talent of your lifetime who came up in your ranks flee you so desperately? Not in position, but just like, you want to know what the answer is. You guys also are weird?
Right. Now, if you're interested in what kind of feedback he got, I can't tell you because after he posted
can't say it on the air.
He froze his account and only people who follow him can read anything, including his own tweets.
Well, I mean,
so this is the only one I could read, but I
that's
just
a good
thought I'd
one.
tell you that.
It's a good point, and I didn't bring it up on the air. I meant to, and I think it's still sitting in pocket too. It was astonishing because, I mean, this is somebody that could have, almost did agree, stay long enough, and they stayed together long enough. Kind of almost got to the point really putting DSA on the map for normies. And then they were like, no.
Yeah, well, pretty much. I mean, she's a talent. There's no question about it. She's their most recognizable member.
Yes.
And now they want to have nothing to do with her.
Well, they do.
I just shrug my shoulders and say, you got to do what you got to do. But, don't ask me to try to solicit their vote. Just don't, because they don't know what they're doing.
I know, nobody knows how to talk to those guys, and it's okay that you don't, because it doesn't affect that much. But yeah, it's not that, and then blah blah blah. They don't want to not have anything to do with it. They want to, I guess they want to control her. They want to ride that train, but hey, you need to drive it our way. And maybe you need to drive your train my way. Or if you don't,
they decided the Gaza
if you don't
train
want
is
to
their
get
ticket
off
to somewhere.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out that well. They had 1/10 of the number of people they claimed they were going to have yesterday.
Oh.
A much smaller impact, and a much smaller impact within the hall, which was negligible.
Yeah, well, that's a tightly controlled ship, actually.
Yeah.
As it turns out.
So Biden had his speech. There's a lot of things you could say about it. It was from the heart.
Yes.
But he ad-libbed one line, according to Jennifer Epstein, which I thought was pretty cute here. He said, they said I was too young to be in the Senate and now too old to be the president.
Yeah, I did see that.
And yet here I am.
Yeah. That was the ad lib. I like the joke, though, and the prepared joke about, and she, the best presidents, was vice president, too.
Yeah.
So
he
I
smiled when
he
said that. It was great. His speech was great. There was nothing wrong with last night. I'll see you after the break.
Oh, all right. Excellent.
For a little bit.
We didn't, run too late. People want to go to bed or anything like that. Viewers in China are very upset. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon, too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's bring Joe Biden in here for one more speech. I think he might be busy.
He's still talking.
To somebody, certainly. Yes. Okay. So let's see. There's a few more things that happened.
Again, you have to step back and look at the big picture here.
All right, then.
What happened to Joe Biden happened. And he was
correct. The fact check.
Incredibly gracious about it last night in his speech.
Okay. Yeah.
He was there. He would totally pumped up Kamala Harris at every opportunity. They would chant, "Thank you, Joe," and he would say, "Thank you, Kamala. She was right there with me."
Yeah.
It was actually really touching.
Yeah, I liked it.
Several times that Kamala didn't tear up, but of course Tim Walz did.
Yeah, he was a little emotional. There were some great photos circulating.
Yeah.
Trying to guess what was going on in his head. I like those.
But again, the thing I want to say, I was telling you about Coach Kerr.
Yes, that guy.
Coach Walz had a formal, we just want to announce that the vote's already been taken, but for the purposes of this convention, we want to announce to you that Tim Walz is our official vice presidential candidate.
Okay.
When they said that, which was, I don't know, maybe 8:30, maybe a little earlier last night Eastern time.
It was 8:27, and that's horrible.
So
because everyone knows it should be at, all right.
The crowd broke out with a spontaneous chant. And what was the chant?
2, 4, 6, 8.
USA.
USA?
The point is, you see Coach Walsh, you think USA. That's what he set up over the last week of him campaigning with Kamala Harris.
It's an interesting choice.
You see her, the crowd spontaneously says, we're not going back. Or, depending upon circumstance, say it to my face. That's what they spontaneously do when they see Kamala Harris.
Okay.
When they see Coach Walsh, they start
USA.
chanting USA.
Wow.
I'm telling you, you can't buy that. That is so good for the Democrats. They have reclaimed the flag, patriotism, the middle of the country, everything you could possibly think of associated with that is associated with Coach Walsh.
I like it. It had to happen. I mean, the other guys abandoned the flag. They like the Pine Sol one.
Right. Or,
or upside down, or the snaky snake. Those guys are,
they're weird, those guys.
They're weird.
And Coach Walsh isn't, and the Democrats own that.
USA. Wow. Okay. I thought maybe, being
because
a
Trump
youth
just
coach.
says we're a terrible country. We're a third world country.
That's
and you see
true.
Coach Walsh
it's
and you
very
start chanting
weird.
USA. You tell me who has the better message there.
I don't know. It's been a long time coming. It's weird that they're only now realizing that, they say, Trump keeps saying that the country is a hellhole. And it's kind of been a Republican platform since forever, which is a larger point. It wasn't just Trump. He didn't invent this stuff. These guys have been like this for a long time. Thank God.
Remember the story that I read
Vance.
to you the other day about how the Democrats, Jonathan Martin's story about how the Democrats have become ruthless?
Ah, yes.
A shout out to Firesign Theater. I wonder where Ruth is.
Well, yeah, okay. Yes.
That's from Nick Danger, Third Eye, just for those of you aficionados. But what happens is they're so ruthless that when they're running late, they cut Grace Meng and James Taylor off the program, which is what happened yesterday.
Well, James Taylor, not actually a politician, so that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he had something to say. And I don't know, does he get
so
another
the Boomers
chance
would have
to
been
sing
heartbroken, but they were all asleep anyway.
later? That's who the 11:30 complaints were coming from. I see.
No, they were coming from the youngest of the reporters. It was just really silly, but in a perfect world. See, here's the thing, and this is another point that I wanted to make because I just think it's so crucial to what's going on here.
Okay.
And no, it's not about Waukesha County. The crucial thing here
that was mild.
Is that on the one hand, the cynical reporters suggest to you that everything is so stage managed at these conventions that you have to view it as a Broadway production and do Broadway critique of it. It ran too long. They missed their mark. The lighting wasn't what it was supposed to be. And they completely ignore the substance as if the substance doesn't matter. But the USA chants, the spontaneous stuff, you can't fake that. You cannot choreograph that. And so there are parts of this that aren't choreographed.
Could I?
And guess what? It makes you run late.
Yeah. That's the worst complaint I ever heard in my life. But what are you going to do? They are going to make it.
But the important
I reject
thing
the
isn't
logic
that
of it.
It makes you run late. The important part is what made you run late. The spontaneous emotion that was felt last night, demonstrated for Hillary Clinton, demonstrated for just the mention of Tim Walsh's name with USA, the Joe Biden speech, the genuine thank you Joe stuff.
Yeah.
You cannot choreograph that. You cannot fake that. You either have it or you don't.
I mean,
and they had it. So if you want to say that the Republicans had a tighter ship, it's because they didn't have any of that stuff.
And I don't know. It's a dumb thing to say. And I mean, like Trump things run late all the time. The convention didn't because they had nobody they wanted to speak at it. But any one of his rallies, any one of his press conferences, speeches, they run on forever.
Trump started at 10:30. Yeah, but he finished at 2 a.m.
Yeah. But the other thing is, by the way, those speeches tend to go on forever with Trump and the audience leaves.
That's what I'm saying. So,
okay, then.
The emotion, the spontaneity, all of it is just so important to all of this. That comes across television, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come across in the written versions of this stuff, but it comes across on TV. It comes across in the clips. I watch C-SPAN and watch the pundits on Twitter. I didn't watch MSNBC or PBS. I wasn't interested in what the pundits were saying about the speeches. I wanted to hear the speeches.
Right. C-SPAN lets you just listen.
Yeah, and it was wonderful, and they did a great job.
It's a good tool.
So,
all right.
You got to hear everybody.
That's a good idea.
Sam Z, I'm Samantha Z, she says on Twitter.
Okay.
People complaining about Biden being on too late are valid, but that's the only scoop. Warnock spoke to Christians.
Okay.
All God's children, whatever side of the aisle, whatever side of the tracks you're on, Warnock said, we're all God's children. We have to help everybody. Palestinians, Israelis, everybody. Red states, blue states. Reproductive rights people were on. They were in prime time.
Oh, yes.
Reproductive rights people and their stories, heartbreaking and wrenching, with you could hear a pin drop in that arena, told their stories and made it sound like the basic health care that it is, said Sam Z. AOC was moderate coded. We just talked about why DSA dropped her. But there was nothing about her speech that would have offended anybody. It was great. And she was all in for the team. So it was a united Democratic Party in the United Center. A top-tier coach did a common sense unity speech. We know who that was. His speech itself wasn't important. It's who was making it and where it was being made that was important. And I highlighted that in the first part of the segment. And then USA signs dotted the crown. That was Coach Tim. So she says, I don't know, somebody fired up the messaging strategist and hit a Caitlin Clark-style three-pointer tonight, which is a homage to the United Center, the Chicago Bulls, and Coach Steve Kerr.
Yeah. All right. I think it sounds like it went fairly well, and I guess the punditry was looking for a way to say, well, we need to temper all the good things.
We need to temper your enthusiasm.
Yeah. You can't have any of that stuff. Get rid of that. Not, or at least not solely that, or else we're not fair and balanced.
Well, speaking of fair and balanced, we do have some fair and balanced pundits. So Dan Diamond writes, all the Twitter chatter got me curious, so I looked it up just for context. Obama 2016 starts speaking at 10:57.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Trump 2020, 10:24.
24. Okay.
There's another one where he finished at 2 a.m.
Oh, well,
Biden,
that one was in the basement.
2024 at 11:26. Reagan, 1988, 10:42. Bush, 1992, 10:20. Clinton, 2000, 9:53. That was well staged.
Yes.
And Bush, 2004, 10:08.
Clinton went till 2 a.m. though.
Yeah. Clinton went till 4 a.m. probably.
So what was that? Is that like hardly anybody ever makes the mark?
I'd like to tell you that it's not unusual to go, at 10:30.
Okay.
And he went at 11:30. And what's the big difference between 10:30 and 11:30? There really isn't any when you
Central Time.
Dice and slice the speech up and send it around as clips.
That's true too. Very different kind of viewing habits, and also, come on, duh. Like there's nothing going to happen here. There's a presidential election. It's a convention. The speeches are sometimes capstones to careers or launching pads for careers, and they're like, note the time.
Right.
Thanks, coroner.
Reagan, 1988, 10:42.
Well, people do note the time. They have to have it, or else these people can't write these columns. I guess.
And what I wrote is, you know what? Joe Biden answers the question of whether or not he can stay up till after 11.
There's that.
The reporters can't, but he could.
Right. Well, he took a nap. I don't know.
And you know who showed up? It wasn't Debate Joe. It was State of the Union Joe.
Yeah.
And he was on fire, and he was great. And I can't leave without mentioning my favorite speech for different reasons, though.
Yeah.
Just because it was really close to my heart. Shawn Fain from the United Auto Workers. And I sent you the picture. I think it's the very first picture I have in the.
Take a look.
It's red today. He's wearing a red shirt.
Yes.
Okay, make the picture big and see what the shirt says and read it to us.
Trump is a scab.
It was great.
Yeah, okay.
So the entire time he's speaking, you're focusing in on that shirt.
Yeah.
And let's just say there's a message there.
It's true and accurate. Trump is, he's scab colored.
How's Trump doing with labor? Well,
As it happens, somebody gave him an opening to have, to be able to claim to be supported by labor, and he slammed the door in their faces. So, okay.
Right. So I'm going to end with a Virginia paper.
Ah.
The Richmond Times-Dispatch.
I'm aware of it.
Yeah. More united than ever is the super big headline, with Kamala Harris wearing, wait for it, a tan suit.
Disrespectful of the office she doesn't hold.
I'm telling you, the message and visuals that came out of this were just wonderful.
Okay.
And yes, they were trolling.
Yeah. Were they? Okay. I like it. Well, the tan suit, I don't know. I guess it needs, it is amazing. Some of those people who made those complaints are still working, and guess who didn't like it coming on, his Joe Biden speech coming on after the news? People who thought tan suits were somehow disrespectful. By the way, it's a classic summer suit. The tan suit, right up and there with seersucker. Like, come on. Yeah. And he wore it during the summer too. It was very annoying. And I believe that the one of very few White House visits I ever made, I believe I wore a tan suit now that I think about it. So, hey, I don't know what you guys are up to out there, but I guess, I don't know, you only have one color of suit and you never saw this? I don't know. Maybe Men's Warehouse doesn't have them. Okay. I can't tell you why that's a problem. I never did understand that one. And, speaking of old tropes coming up again, I understand J.D. Vance was in Philadelphia recently, and he's been there a lot. I'm not certain why he keeps hanging around Philadelphia. Nobody likes him there. But anyway, he went to the cheesesteak place.
Yes.
And so
another thing that didn't work.
I mean, okay, yeah. So the first round of reports of it was like, what? So he goes to the cheesesteak place, and the first word out of it, and it turns out that there's maybe some more nuance to it, but the nuance is also weird. So he goes to the cheesesteak place, Pat's. He chooses Pat's out of the two, dueling. And he says, and he either orders or he asks why. Or whether they have Swiss cheese for the cheesesteak, which of course, when it was just reported that way, I'm like, God, they absolutely just about murdered John Kerry when he asked for Swiss cheese on his cheesesteak.
Well, what he said was, I don't like Swiss cheese. Why do people dislike Swiss cheese? That's
said
what
that?
He said.
Okay, because then the second round of reporting was, he asked, why don't you have Swiss cheese? And then people were saying, well, see, he was doing a reference to the John Kerry.
He was making a joke.
And it was like,
you have to explain the joke. It's not funny.
What? Why don't you have Swiss cheese? Because people don't like it on their sandwiches. Why don't they like it on their sandwiches? I don't know.
Because John Kerry.
Get out of here.
Like anybody working there remembers John Kerry.
No, they don't. Also, by the way, okay, it's a reference back. Now, I remembered it right away.
Remembers John Kerry.
So it's not, I remember because I'm 100 and so do you.
Well, there you go.
But the other thing was, so it happened and it's a real thing and people of a certain age will remember it. The thing is that J.D. Vance is not of that age. He was, as it turns out, he was 19 when that happened. And if you heard about Swiss cheese on the cheesesteak and remembered it when you were 19, you might have been either spending too much time on the couch or just, I doubt very much that you were like a guy that everybody was like, I love hanging out with him. He's just a regular guy. You were a weird kid. And there are weird kids and they grow up and run for office and it's a thing, but it's weird. And then of course, I was making a joke. Like how? Did you use any of the classic setups? Was it knock knock, who's there, Swiss?
No, this is like I was making a joke, please clap. It's got Jeb Bush energy all over it.
Holy cow. And I guess so. What was the structure of the joke? I don't have to be a formalist about making jokes, but like, hey, why don't people like Swiss cheese? And of course, I'm thinking about these guys behind the counter. I don't know. Next, Get out of here. What do you mean? I don't know why people don't. Because they don't. Who are you?
Yeah.
Oh, You're running for vice president.
Listen, it's not what we charge other people, but that'll be $39.95 for your cheesesteak because you deserve it.
I don't know. I mean, it wasn't even like, I'll have it with Swiss cheese. Ha ha, wink, wink. Get it? No, it was. I'm gonna enter into a weird line of questioning about cheese with a short-tempered guy.
Right.
All right.
So again, I told you about the Richmond Dispatch there.
Yes.
This is the Washington Post. Party ushers in a new guard at DNC. And in fact, a lot of the optics around yesterday was passing the torch. So I tried to avoid that trope, but basically that's what you saw yesterday. And it was really orchestrated to do that. But I wanted to throw in two other headlines just because I still love the Queens man indicted stuff from the local Queens, New York paper. Florida man gets nomination, that sort of thing. So this is the Philadelphia Inquirer, and you always have to have a local angle.
Sure.
So this is, as Biden passes the torch to Harris, Scranton glows with pride.
Yes, he did make a Scranton mention.
A bittersweet moment in his hometown. The LA Times had a different angle, believe it or not. They have Democrats begin their party. California delegate Robert Camacho of Concord is decked out in pro-Harris apparel. And then a story about Pelosi has no time for political regrets. So the California papers were interested in California people.
Sure.
And I didn't have time to really search around for all the other stuff, but basically you're going to see the same sort of thing.
I would think so. That's interesting apparel. I wonder where they got some of this stuff.
Yeah. Probably at the Republican National Convention.
Maybe. Or, possibly from Snoop Dogg at the Olympics. That's
right. And listener DM Cohen sends us this via Twitter, not to be outdone by the U.S. press. The Guardian tried this. Kamala Harris wore a tan suit on day one of the DNC. What does it mean?
What does it mean? Oh, my God.
I'll tell you what it means. It's a troll. That's what it means.
I guess. Holy cow. Okay. Well, look, people took
Some
away
argue
different
the suit
messages.
was actually camel, in Camelot.
Oh my
While
God.
Others online
the worst
speculated
joke
Harris was trolling Republicans, or maybe it was just like one of the suits she wears.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's no fun. You can't talk about it that way.
It's much more fun as a planned troll. I do enjoy that idea.
Yeah,
we'll see whether it really
if a woman politician wears white, it's about suffrage.
That is. Sometimes
and so when
message,
women wear things and you're a politician, people try to glean all sorts of stuff as to what the meaning is. Sometimes it has meaning, and sometimes it's just a clean, set of clothes.
Well, Steve Bannon wears 3 shirts and carries 19 pens.
Yeah.
What can I tell you about that? Oh, he's in jail.
Draw your own conclusion.
Now he's in the pen.
Using his pens.
Yeah. I can't tell you. Why? It's just one of those lingering unfairnesses that anti-woman outlook. Essentially, this has to have meaning as opposed to what they tell you. Oh, this old thing, I just threw it on, and sometimes that's what it means.
Oh, I came across the third fact check that was stupid.
Oh, yes.
Biden said, we know from his own chief of staff, 4-star General John Kelly, that Trump, while in Europe, wouldn't go to the grave sites in France of the brave service members who gave their lives in this country. He called them suckers and losers. Kelly didn't exactly say this, and Trump denied the story. In 2003, however, Kelly, who had previously not commented, issued a statement that Trump rants that our most precious heroes who gave their lives in America's defense are losers and wouldn't visit their graves in France. Somehow they call that a fact check, mostly based on the fact that Trump vehemently denies the story. Trump is a known liar. So if you're using that as a fact check,
that's
there's something
never
wrong
work,
with you.
Obviously. And, I guess they could piece things together. Well, Kelly did say later that Trump said that service members were losers, but what about suckers? Well, that was something he said to someone else. And come on,
well, this is one of those, I cannot find a literal quote where he owns up to having said that, even though everybody there says he said it. And Trump says he didn't, therefore we can't call it true.
Okay.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, there's a way to handle it that way if you really want to approach
and
things that way.
your name is Daniel Dale.
Yeah.
And so political scientist Adam Schiffer says, this just makes me respect Daniel Dale more. He seems to be the only one to avoid this.
Yeah, he seems to have a pretty good record on it. And I mean, you could do, if you want to do it the way he does it, is he'll say, all right, now there was never a literal quote that said this and this word together, but he said this here and that there. And generally speaking, it's been, accepted conventional wisdom that 1, he's not particularly respectful of the troops, 2, that he did say these things, and 3, that the fact that he denies it should be discarded. But there you go. But that's how I guess if you're really going to dig into it, go ahead.
Right. So our friend Marcy Wheeler, Empty Wheel, and really is a friend of ours. We've known her for a long time. And she writes, I find, back in the day, we used to blog together, the three of us.
Right.
I find it weird, she writes, that Washington Post thinks last night was AOC's coming out party. In fact, it was Jasmine Crockett's. And our friend Brandy Bookman, who writes on law and legal issues, said, I literally just got a text message from a friend this morning who said, whoa, who is Jasmine Crockett? She was great.
I have to go back and watch this one, but I have seen, like I said, first thing.
Of course, if you've ever seen her, she's always great.
Okay. Well, I haven't, or at least not very often. And so I think I've seen some clips of her committee remarks from time to time. She's made a splash that way. And so is AOC. If anybody thought that was the coming out party, well, I guess for some people, I don't know what can tell you. They just never notice anything. And it takes a while. As you keep saying, right? Adults learn by repetition. Not everybody has become familiar with AOC, and fine, although they probably know her initials.
Yeah.
And, then I guess if it was your first exposure to her and watching the speech yesterday, you probably were thinking, why does everybody think she's such a radical?
Right. Well, and if you think that about her, maybe you should reconsider what people have told you about Kamala Harris.
Right. But not Robert F. Kennedy.
Who's no radical communist.
Yes. And, James
Maybe
Comer
what they're telling you is not true, and you should see it with your own eyes.
Yeah. Well, they'll be investigating it. I think Comer used his reaction time on Fox News to say that he was going to be leading the investigation into the plain fact. I'm sure he stated that Tim Walz is obviously a communist China sleeper agent.
Yes, he taught in China.
Right.
And he taught about human rights.
Right. That's usually what the communist spies.
That's a dead giveaway right there, right?
Right. Yeah. That's the cover story. That's like wearing a tan suit. You say you come to China and you antagonize the government. It works out great. They love it.
So Matt
here.
Glassman, political scientist, says, one important difference between Biden and Trump is Biden is very much a creature of his party, even more so than most modern POTUSes.
Okay. Well, he's been in it
Biden
for
had a
quite
couple
while.
of good lines about his age last night, by the way, in his speech. I don't know if you saw that one.
I did.
I've known every world leader, and that's because I'm so damn old. It was really very funny.
Yeah. You have to go right at it.
And Trump is very much not a creature of his party, way more so than any modern POTUS.
That is true.
And that difference is a key to understanding a lot of the current political dynamics. The key to successfully throwing Biden overboard, even more than I originally appreciated. Remember, he's a cold-blooded, ruthless political scientist, not a partisan, Matt Glassman, is one, everybody liked Biden. Nobody loved him in the cult hero way. He was just solid.
Yes.
And number two, Biden is such a party guy. He didn't sulk. He just played ball.
Yeah.
And you saw that last night in his speech.
I did see that part of his speech and just saying, hey, I love my job, but I love my country.
I love what I was doing, but the party said no, and so okay.
Yeah. That's that is really
pretty
interesting
remarkable.
And a good observation and a good reminder about Trump there. That ordinarily Trump is being inserted for no good reason, but here, Trump is changing his party, which sometimes is regarded as a good thing, but of course he's changing it into a fascist dictator party, which is not a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. Good contrast there. Right. And so Biden saying, I'm sure if you wanted to spin it badly, like, oh, he's such a party, it's like the Politburo says, get out. And he's listening to people. And on the other side, in the other team, he's making his daughter-in-law chair of the party. so that no one can tell him to get out.
Well, as Coach Walsh would tell you, it's all about the team, and Coach Kerr would tell you the same thing.
Yeah. Whereas everybody else says, now there's the thing, right? Donald Trump and Steve Kerr on the floor for the championship game. The idea of Donald Trump giving up the ball or not standing there saying, give it to me. I can make the shot. No, you can't. But it would be all about him. And that's an interesting message too, right? I'm the big star. That's the guy with the shot. We want to win this game. Donald Trump, me, and you lose.
Right.
Good. Looking forward to it.
So in the moment, as we played, Steve Kerr was hilarious.
Yes.
And he did one of the Steph Curry nighty-night things. As far as Donald Trump goes, and you put your hands under your ear and you lean over, nighty-night.
All right.
Because that's a gesture that Steph does. It's patented.
And we'll pay.
But he lent it to Coach Kerr so he could use it for tonight.
That seems good. Yeah, the other side, that's another thing. The other guys steal the music and the stuff and end up getting sued. Oh, well. All right. Major differences. Now, I understand they're going to continue this convention tonight.
So I hear. And so we'll have more to talk about tomorrow.
Excellent.
And as the schedule goes, then tomorrow night, they're going to have more of it. And I'll have more to say about it on Thursday.
On Thursday. And then they'll finish with respect to, they're going to finish on Thursday, and so are you for the week.
Well, we'll see. If there's something really good Thursday night, I might pop in on Friday.
Okay.
And say hi.
I am open to that prospect.
I mean, it's just a special week. And
hey man,
again, all of this
is
nice. The optics are terrific. It's a lot of fun. The pundits don't know what they're talking about. The fact checkers are crazy, but they're not really crazy. They're just opinionated. They want you to think it's fact and not opinion. It's opinion, just so you know. However, the proof of the pudding are the numbers in terms of who watched. We'll get that this week. And the polling as to what kind of effect it has, we'll get that next week.
Okay. I guess so. And then we start talking about whether there's a bounce or not a bounce.
Exactly. But we're not going to know that till next week.
We won't even know that until the bounce goes away in order to know that it was a bounce.
We won't know if it's a bounce. We'll see the effect.
It's just climbing the steps.
It's a bounce or a permanent change.
Right. Okay. And if the election was held then there would be no bounces. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Time for the sprint almost, but first a couple of victory laps. Excellent. Thanks very much, Greg. Appreciate it. We weren't, demanding a full hour out of you. You
didn't get a full hour. You just got my usual 20-minute segment.
It's stretched out over the. Yeah, okay. Very good.
But wait,
Thank you.
One more thing.
Oh yeah. We'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. I'm practicing my punditry. Fact check.
Good.
We're out of time. Okay. All right. We'll be back after just 1 minute. This time it's true. I got 1 minute to change into a tan suit. I'll be right back. All righty. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. How much time does Kagro get today? Half an hour. Okay. Well, I got a little bit of time in between Greg's report and the check-in from Joan. By which I mean, so far, none of the affirmative methods by which she says, oh my God, things are so crazy here, I can't make it, have carried that message. So everything appears to be good. I don't think there's anything about, it wasn't like, they can't handle staying up late and watching Joe Biden speak. And she's West Coast. So, she has to get up early to speak with us, but Joe Biden starting at 11:30? Is like 8:30. It's like prime time. So I don't think that should pose the problem, but maybe writing about it. Anyway, no reason for me to believe that, I don't know. Why am I talking about this? I'm obsessing about this. Fact check. Everything seems normal. So, all right. What can I share with you inside of a half hour one that might be of some interest perhaps to Joan? She wants to carry on with things. I'll take a gander at, what's a gander? Again, we're all 500 years old here. See what she's been up to and what she's been covering. Oh, yeah. Jamie Raskin's speech got a lot of mention, and that's top of the list for Joan's posts. But, free reign to take us anywhere. I'm sure she'll want to speak a little bit about the convention and her own coverage of it, because the pundits sucked at it. So we'll get a new pundit in here. Okay. So let's see. I had also put aside the piece that Greg mentioned, beware the pundit-brained version of the Democratic Convention. So now that you're aware of it, I guess that will do just fine. What about some other crap that people would be interested in? I don't think I have enough time to go back to, maybe a little bit tomorrow, back to the conclusion of the ProPublica story about what's going on in Georgia. But I think we all have the gist of that. Do you want to talk about, fantasy or reality? I guess one story I have here is Business Insider. I mean, it's a short piece, but I mean, I don't know how much time it's really worth. A piece from Business Insider, they're not crazy. They're covering the things that people want covered, but they have the question they're answering here is, could J.D. Vance be booted off of the Republican ticket now that they've had their convention? Trump could certainly try anything, but is there a mechanism by which you could actually replace him? And, everybody's just speculating that that's in the offing because, well, one, J.D. Vance is horrific as a candidate and is actually dragging down a Trump ticket, which is ordinarily accused quite accurately of dragging down everybody else's ticket. So, it's a bad situation for them. Terrible idea. Probably on the advice of Don Jr., among others, and they just really have no idea how to be normal. So, what about that? Would they try and do that? Would they try? I don't know. Can they do it? I don't know. Here's a stab at it from the Business Insider reporter Alice Tekotsky, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, from way back when. Is that right? Is the date on this thing correct? I'm reading the pocket version of it, so I'm not sure. See if I can reload this thing. Where's the date on? Yeah, July 25th. So I don't know why it was being circulated again, but I guess people were talking about it like as soon as the switch was made on the Democratic side. So they said, well, can they make a switch on the Republican side? But the circumstances are different. I don't know. Anyway, you know what? It might not even be worth looking at because I don't know whether it's an accurate accounting, but I suppose we should credit her as having done some research here. But it's an older piece. So anyway, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio has had a rough week and a half since he was announced as former President Donald Trump's vice presidential candidate. It's been longer than that, but it hasn't gotten any less rough. While Trump insists he's sticking with him, Vance sucks, so could you replace him? That's the question. For those wondering, the answers lie in recent history and the fine print of Republican Party rules. So she did do some research. It's still technically possible that Trump could choose a new number two. And when you're talking about Trump and number twos, man. Anyway, but such a decision would have to happen very soon. And that was in July 25th that she wrote this, and it's coming up on it's August 20th now. It's a month later. So probably no. I don't know how it would work. Democratic and Republican national committees have separate rules, believe it or not, governing how they fill vacancies of presidential or vice presidential nominees. Under Rule 9, the Republican National Committee explains how it fills a vice presidential vacancy, quote, which may occur as the result of death, declination, or otherwise. So that's a big word, otherwise. Like, I quit, they're making too much fun of me, I'm just not going to run. You could do that. I mean, what a person could say that, right? They're free to do it. The question is, what would the party do about it? And then the next question is, does it matter what the rules say if, one, Donald Trump is involved, or two, Donald Trump is involved and he has installed a family member as co-chair of the Republican National Committee and the other co-chair is a lackey? The rule, she says, allows the party to reconvene its national convention if it chooses, or to move ahead with a vote of the smaller group of Republican National Committee members who would determine Vance's replacement. So they can do sort of an executive committee. They can reconvene in convention. I don't think that it would be a televised thing, except maybe on C-SPAN. The other networks, such as they are these days, would probably say, we already gave you your time, no more. And we don't, we'll send reporters and we'll report on it, but we're not going to give nightly coverage. It would be, she says, a race against the clock, which presumably is expired by now. Time arguably poses more complications than the specific rules, says Amy Dacey, former CEO of the Democratic National Committee, who's now the executive director of the SINE, S-I-N-E, as opposed to SINE, like Sine Die, but SINE Institute of Policy and Politics at American University. The American University. I think sometimes what people forget is that people start voting in September. Dacey told Business Insider. There's an early vote in some states in September, so this is not just a November election. And the worst case scenario would be for your nominees not to appear on the ballot in a state. Crucially, the rule explicitly applies to a scenario in which Vance voluntarily steps aside, says Kenneth Meyer, a recently retired political science professor at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He told Business Insider there was no precedent for forcibly ripping the nomination away from a vice presidential candidate after the convention. Meyer also said impending state deadlines posed a significant issue, and the complications would only snowball once ballots were printed. It would be, he said, extraordinarily disruptive, both logistically and politically, to replace Vance as the vice presidential nominee. And I can only imagine how stupid and difficult it would be to try to handle it. Okay. Let's see. Is there more? Vance has had a rocky start to joining the ticket. He sucks. His numbers are terrible. Punchbowl News conducted a survey at the Republican convention. Almost 80% of staffers and leaders said they disapproved of the Vance pick. Here's a funny note. Most of them said that Trump should have gone with Glenn Youngkin of Virginia instead. I mean, that would have been interesting in the sense that, then people would finally have the chance to examine his record, I guess. And it would be somewhat helpful here in Virginia if the whole country said, yeah, actually, he's kind of a Trump clone in a way. They say he doesn't say things as rudely as Trump, but I mean, in terms of adhering to the policy or trying to be Trumpy, I don't know why anybody bought into the fleece vest thing, but they did. And I don't know. And on the other hand, were he to then lose the election, it's not like, Youngkin can run for governor again. He would then, I guess, run for Senate and the next opportunity, but it would be awfully difficult for him to run as the I'm different from Trump guy, having just campaigned as I'm not different from Trump guy. I have to be a supportive Trumper in order to fulfill my role as a vice presidential candidate. And that would forever ruin the fleece vest thing, I guess. All right. Well, anyway, I mean, I think that's about it. They talk about the rest of what else they would have done or who else they could have nominated, but that doesn't have anything to do with the mechanics of it. There is a section here that says there's one modern example of such an extraordinary move occurring, and that would be 1972, in which Democrats, when George McGovern dropped his vice presidential nominee, Senator Thomas Eagleton of Missouri, after only 18 days together on the ticket. Eagleton resigned under pressure after the public found out he'd been treated for depression. Can you imagine? I don't know if the same thing would have happened these days, but there you have it. For the Republican committee, who knows? I mean, you do a rules-based analysis, but ultimately his daughter-in-law is co-chair of the party and he's a dictator. So they would do what they felt like doing is what it comes down to. All right. Greg wants more time on the show, I guess, unless he's setting up for tomorrow. He sent me a couple other links here. I have to go and check and see whether they're meant for, oh my God, we have to let everyone know now. Let's see. A Brit friend on the clip discussion. I guess the idea that Americans will be consuming these speeches. If Biden's speech was too late for them, they will just see it in the morning. Let's see. Karen Robinson noting, I would also note for the record that highlights from last night's speeches dominated the UK news today. I watched that clip on the TV screens in my office over lunch. The event is for the people in the room and the clip is for the millions who can't make it. Both worked great. So That sums it up rather nicely. There's another link to Twitter here. Oh, some Barack Obama saying, let's go, Coach Kerr. Thanks for bringing home the gold for Team USA and for your leadership at a crucial moment of our country. Barack Obama has some connection also to Chicago, as it turns out. And so, okay. I mean, it was, he claps for Coach Kerr. USA gold medal, Coach Kerr, if we want to play it. USA chants? Okay. Well, I mean, everybody knows how the USA chants go. All right. But we get the picture. Do we want to play it? I don't know. All right. Well, let's move on. Yeah, you know what? I mean, maybe because everyone loves a good USA chant and the sound is turned up and everything. Let's see if we can't, it's going to autoplay. Let me see if I can just turn up the sound right in the middle and make it work. There we are. There's the USA.
Thank you.
I'm just going to play this chant for myself.
It is.
Thank you. USA for me. All right. Excellent. I'm glad for that. All right. Just the beginning. We don't have to play the 6 minutes of the speech. I'm sure it was a good one. And this way we can just pretend that the USA is for me. Okay. What other things do I want to share with you? Well, why not this piece of background nonsense from the Washington Post? Just yesterday, I was tweeting this one around. I still say tweeting. It doesn't matter. I'm not actually on, I still have an account on Twitter, but I try not to add any content to the pool over there. Not that I'm going to sink the place, but anyway, this one I shared yesterday, along with the commentary. It's more important than ever. This is the crucial moment to repeat 100 times over and over again. I know you've all heard it. Every Republican accusation is a confession, but it's just true. And it's helpful and it's succinct and it explains a lot, and it's never been more important that people understand this than with a headline like this one from the Washington Post yesterday. With false, quote, coup claims, Trump primes supporters to challenge a Harris win. Everybody understands, I think, who's been watching all along, exactly what that means. They get the headline. It's helpful that it says false right in the headline. Stronger language could probably be used, but this is a newspaper and it's going to take them a while to get around to it. There has to be another coup in order to give them a chance to say, all right, this really sucks. We shouldn't have these anymore. Even though nearly having their reporters murdered, for a while we thought that was going to change everything. But as it turns out, maybe not. Anyway, it's important to understand this one because, one, it is Trump's excuse for losing. It's also Trump's excuse for launching another coup when he loses, as he has essentially said he's going to do. Fact check. No, he never said I'm going to launch another coup because he doesn't believe he launched the first coup or something like that. But this is important. With false coup claims, Trump primes supporters to challenge a Harris win. He's going to accuse Harris of having executed a coup to replace Biden as the nominee, even though, there's been a convention and the delegates who we've given this power over to seem to be okay with it. And it's all done according to the rules. Oh, well, never mind. Amid a tight presidential race, Donald Trump has tried to delegitimize Kamala Harris's nomination and undermine confidence in this year's election. You'll get the gist of it. And hopefully we'll finish it up before it's time to talk with Joan. Colby Itkowitz and Hannah Allam are the writers on this piece. From the moment Vice President Kamala Harris emerged as a surprise Democratic presidential nominee. The switch was a surprise, or the resignation was a surprise. Resignation as nominee, anyway. But choosing her, not a surprise. She's the designated successor. Some people were surprised by it, but no, not the rest of us. Former President Donald Trump then began arguing that she was anointed through a coup rather than chosen by primary voters. And it's true that she didn't have a chance to stand and wouldn't have stood for election during the primaries. But what are the primaries about? The primaries are about electing delegates to go to the convention. What do the delegates do? Ordinarily, they validate the choice made by the voters. But if someone's refusal to accept the nomination gets in the way, who's empowered to choose a new nominee? If the nominee were to die or be otherwise incapacitated or just refuse to accept the nomination, as is the case here, you got to make a decision. Who does the decision get delegated to? If you had the opportunity, would you go back to voters? Sure. But as it happens, the vote taken before is a mechanism for appointing people empowered to make these decisions on our behalf. And that's what they're doing. So great. But anyway, after barely mentioning election integrity at the Republican convention in July, Trump is now casting the upcoming election as rigged against him and baselessly labeling any hurdle in his path as election interference. Voting against me is election interference. This was an overthrow of a president. This was an overthrow, Trump said at a rally in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania on Saturday, referring to Harris replacing Biden on the ticket. You will have noticed, however, that Joe Biden was introduced as President Joe Biden and was, in fact, president during the entirety of his speech. And as he mentioned in his speech, there are 5 months remaining in my presidency. That's difficult to square with the idea of overthrowing a president. But that's Trump being Trump. It's just hyperbole. Fact check. Where are my fact checkers on this? They do say it was false, but why not a whole column of how outrageous how outrageously he's lying? Anyway, maybe this isn't here. Let's go see. He later added, they deposed a president. It was a coup of a president. This was a coup. He doesn't have that many words at his command. Trump's efforts to undermine the confidence in this year's election are reminiscent of the tactics he used in the 2020 campaign. Oh, and also the 2016 campaign. Everything's rigged. It's reminiscent of everything he's ever done. And indicate how he could seek again to delegitimize the results if he loses, setting the stage for another combustible fight over the presidency, election and national security, experts said. Also, by the way, historians would be a good group of people to ask, or people who've been alive for 5 years might be a good group of people to ask about what a combustible fight over the presidency means. Boy, racially tinged. This is Donald Trump's playbook. There's a deep state. They're all out to get me, said Elizabeth Newman, who served as a senior Department of Homeland Security official during the Trump administration and is now among his conservative critics. Even here, as he's going to have to face a stronger, harder candidate to defeat, his default is, well, this couldn't possibly be legal. This is a coup. This is wrong, even though there are no facts to back that up. While some of this is just for show, Newman said, Trump and his allies are also setting up the next version of Stop the Steal. They don't really usually set things up per se because they don't plan ahead or know how to do anything, but they say things that they later will say, oh yeah, didn't I say that something? All right, well, let's go with it. Trump has long insisted that his political failures are the result of some malevolent force trying to keep him out of power, and he has weakened faith in the U.S. election system despite widespread evidence that the results can be trusted. When asked to comment for this article, Trump's campaign responded with a statement attacking Harris and again characterizing her nomination as part of a coup. Caroline Levitt is the person responsible for issuing this thing. She now being part of the campaign after having essentially left the Project 2025 team. Now her job with the Trump campaign team is to deny that there is such a thing as Project 2025, which is kind of interesting. What's her comment? President Trump and our campaign have never been more confident that we're going to win this election. Okay. When Trump ran for president the first time in 2016, he falsely claimed that this is going to be a trip down memory lane. He falsely claimed that Senator Ted Cruz stole the Iowa caucuses. And he told his supporters that the general election was absolutely being rigged against him, even though something. After winning, he falsely said his loss in the popular vote was due to millions of people who voted illegally. In 2020, he baselessly claimed the influx of mail-in ballots amid the global pandemic, largely his fault, led to widespread fraud that cost him the election. And as Congress gathered to certify the results, Trump supporters violently attacked the U.S. Capitol. and tried to halt the process. For months, Trump had boasted that he was on a glide path to victory in a rematch against Biden, and he told his supporters the only way he could lose is if Democrats cheated. But he began ratcheting up his warnings about the election process when Harris began drawing massive crowds and surpassed him in several national and swing state polls, including some in which he had led Biden. Now Trump has refused to say that he will accept the outcome of the election if he loses. Now, he didn't affirmatively say, fact check, that he wouldn't accept the outcome, but he has refused to say that he will. So, I don't know. That was good enough for the Washington Post the other day. Now it's not. If everything's honest, I'll gladly accept the results. I don't change on that, Trump said in a May interview with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. If it's not, you have to fight for the right of the country, whatever that's supposed to mean. The overarching message, often pushed by Trump himself, is that the race has entered a make-or-break stage in which a shadowy Democratic apparatus is poised to steal Republican votes. While doing this, Trump has tried to deflect attacks that he is a threat to democracy by insisting that he's the true protector of it. Recently saying he, quote, took a bullet for democracy. Well, I don't know. That was actually a bullet that you took for dictatorship, I would say. That's probably the reason behind the bullet, although, as it turns out, the guy was a bit of a right-wing nut job himself, but it's just a selfish thing, perhaps. You want to be dictator yourself. Had the bullet been one for democracy, I don't know what would have been the outcome. And that Democrats are the real threat to democracy, which he capitalizes, all caps now. And they're the real threat to democracy. Why? Because, as I told you, it's never been more important to understand every Republican accusation is a confession. Through this year's presidential campaign, Trump has portrayed himself as a victim of a Democratic power grab. We're always grabbing. That's the thing. As opposed to the other guy who said, they let you do it. Grab them. Go ahead. He blamed his dozens of criminal charges on the Biden administration, accusing his original opponent of weaponizing the judicial system as a form of election interference. Since Harris jumped in the race last month, Trump has repeatedly sought to sow doubts about her integrity. He attacked her racial identity, accusing her of only recently identifying as black, which is not true. He actually says that in print. Thank you very much. And earlier this month, Trump falsely accused Harris of using artificial intelligence to manipulate a campaign rally photo to make the crowd look larger than it was. By the way, you don't need AI for that. Photoshop will do the trick, but there was no evidence of either being used and no reason to, because those crowds are actually there. And anyway, by the way, it doesn't mention this here, but like 2 days later, he was circulating on social media obvious AI fakery of similar events, this time showing Kamala Harris speaking to crowds waving Soviet Union flags and communist banners to prove the point that something. No one knows what the point was supposed to be. He called for her to be disqualified because the creation of a fake image is election interference. And he added, anyone who does that will cheat at anything. In reality, Harris attracted a massive crowd. And then, I don't know whether it happened after the deadline for this piece, but then he, of course, circulated a fake image, which is election interference, apparently, but if you're trying to hold him to his own logic, just stop now. Save yourself some time. In an August 6th post on Truth Social, Trump presented a fantastical story that envisioned Biden, quote, whose presidency was unconstitutionally stolen, all caps, from him, crashing this week's Democratic National Convention to take back the nomination. How did that prediction work out? I mean, there's more days left, but that's not how he used his speech. They forced him out. It was a coup. We had a coup, Trump said of Biden at an August 9th rally in Bozeman, Montana. That was the first coup of the history of our country, and it was very successful. It's not the first coup. It's not even the first coup that you've been involved in. And what can I tell you? That's, that's a statement clearly engineered to try and pretend that January 6th either didn't happen or that, as they say, it was a love fest. People were just, it was just tourists, et cetera, et cetera. Part of the biggest big lie ever. Supporters at his rallies have embraced and echoed these sentiments. In Montana, Carol Taylor, 62, said the people, the Democrats, are getting cheated and they don't even realize it because they're not getting to vote for their candidate. I think that's almost like a coup, but not quite. To get Kamala Harris in there, said Rachel Galinsky, 55, at a Trump rally in St. Cloud, Minnesota. So I don't think he's really bringing the crowds along with that one, but it's interesting to collect the comments. Another St. Cloud rally goer, 35-year-old Jose Chapa Jr. Oh, I got to get set up for our exit here and bring up the music, or at least the soundboard. There we go. And now the music. What does Jose Chapa Jr. say? The party that said they stand for democracy didn't even let their people vote for who they wanted to vote for. Sure they did. Everyone saw it. They voted for Joe Biden, but then Joe Biden said no. So what were you going to do? You could have held another vote, or you take the people that got voted to go to the convention and ask them, what do you guys think? Or you take the people on the Democratic National Committee who were voted in. What do you guys think? That's how it works. But I don't know, something unusual happened. I don't understand it. Yikes.
Sup, fam? It's your boy Darwin, a.k.a. Darwin_Darko, a.k.a. the most reasonable man in America, a.k.a. KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen vs. Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
Okay, welcome back everybody to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. A very professionally handled segue into Joan McCarter's segment. She's here, and I got to answer the call, and then I was like, uh-oh, this is the silent period. But well handled there. You're very well trained, Joan. Thank you for hanging on during the playing of the music and the reintroduction of everybody to the podcast they're listening to, as if it was on the radio and people had somehow spontaneously changed the channel to this show. Not happening. They were already here, but hi, everybody. Joan McCarter is with us. First night of the convention behind us, and I don't know, apparently you probably watched this thing. Did you have a good time? Okay, excellent. Yes. I figured you did. Greg did. Greg says hi, by the way. He'd like you to know Greg. That. It says he made me promise. He decided to come in today, which is not usual for him on a Tuesday, but there was this convention thing. And speeches were given and people enjoyed them. And I don't know if you enjoyed it so much as we're covering it for work, but I think people had a pretty good time, even if they were forced to watch. How did you rate
think so.
This? Okay.
I enjoyed it, most of it.
Okay.
There were a few parts, I really do think that they probably could have tightened it up to get Biden on in prime time, but
they might have given it a shot.
I'm not going down the route of Nate Silver.
Oh,
whose
well, that's a bad
conspiracy
idea.
Theory is that they purposefully went late so that he would not be on in prime time.
Well, it's a theory. It's just a bad one.
It's a theory if you don't know Democrats and how good they are at organizing things.
Yeah.
How not good they are at organizing things.
Well, I mean, I find nothing wrong. There's no need for a conspiracy theory. Basically, really honestly, Republican or Democrat, but certainly more so perhaps with Democrats, I'd say, how many speeches are scheduled? All right, yeah, we're not going to be able to do this. But okay, let's just go with it. And by the way, let's not play the music and play people off or give them the hook if you're up and coming in favor of the guy who's going to kind of give his, capstone address here. As exciting as that will be, although that was never the plan. A lot of the pundits were complaining, Biden's people said that he wasn't going to give this kind of a speech. And then he did. Like, oh, well.
You know what? If Biden wants to give his stump speech one more time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If
Biden wants to speak for half an hour, go ahead. If he wants to show you he wasn't mentally impaired, you do that, Joe.
Yeah.
You earned it.
I think, yeah.
But it would have been nice if, Raphael Warnock had cut 15 minutes out of his.
How long did he go? I don't know.
He went about 15 minutes too long. He had a great closing
segment. That's a long time to even be on at all. 15 minutes is a lot to get at a convention. So 15 minutes of it should have gone.
I'm exaggerating.
Okay.
I'm exaggerating.
Oh, all right.
I wasn't exactly watching the clock.
Fact check. It was 14 minutes and 39 seconds.
You give preacher a mic in front of a huge crowd, and
that's going to happen.
It was quite good, but it was too long.
Okay.
They cut Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Grace Meng and James Taylor.
Okay. I mean,
to try to save time, to try to keep time going. And the organizers say one of the problems was applause. And, Hillary Clinton got massive applause.
Well, okay.
Coming on in the middle as she went on, it was a fantastic speech. Hillary's speech was a highlight.
Okay. So they did manage things. It's not like they just said, well, the schedule's the schedule's. To hell with it. Everybody gets to speak. They did things. They tried.
They did things. But, they could have had fewer speakers scheduled for the night and tightened it up a bit.
Well, maybe tonight.
One country singer singing.
Okay. You think that's enough?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think so too.
Right? They were both great, but
I got you. All right. Singing even, I guess that breaks things up. It makes it more of a show, etc. But okay. I noticed up at the top of the list of your latest is Jamie Raskin's, or your review, I guess, of Raskin.
It's just a snippet.
Okay. I missed his entirely. I did catch up on clips of other people's speeches, and I was working late on other things and said, Joe Biden's still on. I'm going to watch this. So I caught that. But Raskin, what did he do? What was he up to?
Raskin was there primarily to remind people that January 6th happened.
Okay. Because it did. And
he didn't really focus on it, but it was a bit of a warning that this is Donald Trump. And this will almost certainly happen again.
Well, yes, he keeps saying as much, but the fact check, he hasn't said he's going to stage another coup. You can't say that. Okay. That's true. In fact, what he's saying is that the Democrats are the ones doing the coup, which is, of course, how you know that he's planning to do another coup. But they can't speak that code, apparently. All right. Well, Jamie Raskin, he's looking healthy. I know he's had some issues.
He looked great. He's a fun speaker. He's a fun speaker, and he's good at dragging Republicans.
Yeah, I see. He's got
the line. The best line was the one that we clipped, calling Trump a sore loser who does not know how to take no for an answer from American voters, American courts, or American women.
Okay, yeah. And that's a very serious issue and a good point that just kind of across the board. He's just not really tuned into no as a possibility. Mm-hmm. And no is a bit of an issue in the country and has been and he refuses to take no for the answer in all the contexts. It's not metaphorical. It's political. It's personal. It's assault. He's kind of not a no guy. So I'm glad we were reminded of that. And it's also good to see him healthy.
Yes.
So.
Yes, it was great to see him healthy. Some other highlights.
Yeah.
Mallory McMorrow?
Okay.
Is her first name Mallory?
I don't know.
Now I'm questioning. The state legislature, state legislator, yes. Mallory McMorrow. I got that right from Michigan.
Okay. Yes.
Who
MMM.
Burst onto the scene, you might remember, 3 years ago?
Let's see. For what
4
purpose?
4 years ago.
How so?
A Senate floor speech denouncing a campaign attack from a Republican colleague.
Okay.
This was what it was. The Republican who sent out an email saying McMorrow and others were, quote, outraged they can't groom and sexualize kindergartners.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember this. McMorrow, she's young, red hair, great speaker.
Okay.
Just had a stem winder of a Senate floor speech back in 2022.
Okay.
Talking about, I'm a Christian.
Oh, no. They insulted a Christian.
What we're talking about is protecting children. We're talking about helping children. We're talking about lifting children up, and you are being hateful.
Yeah.
It was a very good speech that went viral.
Okay.
So she was there last night to introduce Project 2025. And she will be back apparently throughout to talk about Project 2025. She came out with this huge book that purported to be Project 2025, and it was good. She was good.
Okay,
I think
good.
This one has a bright
keep
future.
An eye on this. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to, we'll keep an eye on it. And I guess if she's going to be back to speak some more, that's an interesting tactic all by itself, and a different take on convention speeches to have somebody keep returning like this.
And you don't often have props.
Yes. Well, it's so rare that the other side, writes the plan for how to destroy America and publishes it ahead of time. They usually just did it at their convention and it's not printed yet. So
one of the things that was sort of interesting to me is the level at which Project 2025 has permeated the public.
Yeah.
Zeitgeist, whatever.
Yeah.
People know about it. People hate it. It's not a big secret thing anymore because, of course, they didn't make it a big secret thing.
Yeah.
They released it.
Well, that's true. They promoted it as hard as they could. That ordinarily would not actually have injected it into the public consciousness at large. But I guess some other people read it and said, oh, my God, it's horrible. Here's what's in it. John Oliver did a tremendous number on it. And I think that probably got a lot of people talking on it. And maybe it was just that lots of pundits saw his show and then they started to notice, hey, actually, they've been trumpeting this everywhere. It's one of those things. Once you become aware of something, it begins to look like a trend because you're now aware of it. You've been ignoring mentions of it before, but now, hey, Project 2025. I do have this. Someone emailed it to me months ago. It's them. Oh, my God. Yeah, I think this is, I'm tremendously gratified that people have been paying attention to all the good reporting that's been done on it. It's nice. And I think
it is nice.
Yeah. I guess now that you mentioned McMorrow's, I'm trying to think if I remember the speech, and I'm not certain that I do, but when you quoted it, it occurred to me, this is a very good choice of person to come back and make this presentation, not only because their speech was good, but because it's almost like we've now discovered, all the things she denounced as hateful and despicable, all the accusations that have been leveled. Now we recognize this as, that's the weird that people have been talking about. Now we understand. Now we know what this thing was, that to be on the floor of the House and the legislature and have to denounce a colleague as having made these incredible accusations. They were definitely horrific and wrong, but this is the weird stuff. They think everybody's a pedophile. And I think that's weird. It's odd how that's the thing that everybody thinks of in that party. And that's the accusation, everybody grooming and pedophilia. And why is that so on your mind? And now, of course, that we realize that in addition to they're being weird, that every Republican accusation is a confession. Got to get a hold of that guy's computer now. It's, oh my gosh, we have to launch an investigation. But
I just popped you the tweet.
Okay.
That went huge. If you want to.
This is the video of the speech, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
From the original speech that put her on the national stage.
Okay. Well, I'll hold on to it for the moment. I don't know how long is the clip? Oh, it's a 4-minute clip, but, okay. And so visually, I'll share it with everybody because I think, in the roundup, once you see the visual of it. Oh, yes, I remember. Okay.
Yes.
Let me pocket it and, maybe we can play it at some point tomorrow, but your time is limited. So. And we don't want to, and we want to run long. If we go till past like the evening news, people will go crazy. So, I'm running a tight ship.
What you didn't see a lot of last night, other than Project 2025, this is pretty weird. You didn't see a lot of weird.
Except saying that they were weird, but yeah.
No, the word wasn't really used.
Oh, it wasn't used? Oh, okay.
They didn't focus on that part so much. It was a lot of.
That's not an opening night theme, sure.
We had the lifting up, and Hillary Clinton again was just fabulous at that. And there was definitely the warning. There was the warning from Raskin. There was the warning from McMorrow. There was obviously the warning from Biden.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Things are really good and we're having a party and we feel great about this, but don't forget. And we have to work really hard to make sure that this is so big they can't do it again.
Yeah. Well, clearly necessary. And probably, a conscious decision, and certainly on the first night, there's plenty to feature, and really for all 4 nights, plenty to say about positive in the nature of what Democrats are going to be campaigning on, and there'll certainly be, and there already have been, but generally speaking, warnings and if you like, attacks on the Trump team. I'm wondering whether they're thinking of they're taking to heart I hope not, actually. The punditry's aversion to, well, maybe they shouldn't be saying weird all the time. And I think they've probably gotten that message across. It's not necessary to use convention airtime for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it made an appearance or two. And it would be wise for Walz even to say,
I'm sure it will. I mean, for one thing, Walz is going to be speaking.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So he can certainly do a thing. Well, everybody knows that they're, dare I say it, weird, but I'm here to talk about Okay. We'll see how it goes. Man. But yeah, I'm reminded of that. And I guess McMorrow's repeated appearances, even if it's not the right time to remind everybody that they're weird, that's where it's interesting how often Republicans not only confess to things with their accusations, but create rising stars by forcing people to respond to the weird and the icky factor of having to run against Republicans who feel unconstrained in saying these things. That's weird. Sorry, it is.
It is weird. It is weird.
Yeah, it's not the sort of thing. It's like a standing joke. People used to say, well, if I could just accuse them of that. But we know you can't do that. But to spend your time in front of everybody saying these things all the time and then making, they used to cry about the Ken Starr report. Oh, how am I going to explain to my kids the subject of this report? And of course, now 30, 40 years later, I'd be afraid to think about having to explain to kids today what this Republican politician just said on the floor of the legislature. What, Mom, what's grooming? Well, first of all, why are you asking me? I'm your dad. But okay. You'll be back. Mom will say, go ask your dad. But you get the idea. The point is, any parent could be asked that, and you'll be like, in many cases, the things that they accuse people of, you say, you know what? I don't know. I might have to go look this up to figure out what they're screaming about. Now I understand what they mean, like grooming. What's grooming? It's like brushing your hair and your teeth. You know, that's what grooming is. It doesn't sound like it, given the context. Oh, very sophisticated of you kids. I'll look it up. Oh my God. You'll never believe it.
Way too sophisticated in 2024.
Yes.
It's a bad thing.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, all right. Lots going on. You're going to be watching again tonight. Do you have...
be watching again tonight. We have more presidents. Have we had a president yet? Yes, we had President Biden.
Yes, him. That's the guy.
Tonight
What's his name?
have
Biden.
President Obama and Michelle.
Okay.
Woo!
Yeah. All right.
We'll talk about, let's see, Newsweek says, the bold vision for a Harris presidency.
Okay. That's his wheelhouse. Bold visions. And speaking about them. Okay.
Let's see. Who else do we have? We've got Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff.
Okay.
J.B. Pritzker. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham and Senator Gary Peters.
Okay.
We expect.
Maybe.
At least. I haven't seen a full lineup of the performers, et cetera. I don't know that they've put out the precise schedule yet.
Well, they may be trying to be flexible to run a tighter ship or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll, so it's, in that sense, there's excitement just to see what's going to happen next. But, Tuesday night, okay. You know, there's only a couple of nights left. It's sometimes tedious.
And you have to have, we're going to have, Bill Clinton tomorrow night.
All right. It's a risk.
Jason Carter will be there representing Jimmy Carter.
Oh.
Family says that Jimmy has sort of fucked up to make it through.
Yeah. He did say that he was interested in
his last goal in life to defeat Donald Trump.
Yeah. Right. That he was, I'm just trying to hold on long enough to cast my ballot for Kamala Harris. A laudable goal, but now he's got programming to watch. I don't know if he can stay up that late, but you can still show him the clips.
It's nice, though, to think that we've had, Clinton, Carter, Obama, Biden, 4 presidents like this.
Right.
The Republicans had 1.
Yeah. And that was a mistake.
No way was W going to show up at Trump's convention.
Well, right.
Most of Trump's administration did not show up at Trump's convention.
I was reading yet another article today about criticism against him and then finding out that, this is somebody who worked in his, national security apparatus. The cabinet isn't there for him. I don't know. He tried to murder his vice president. That's why there's a new one. And, not a lot of supporters there.
Which reminds me.
Yes.
Your old friend, Barbara Comstock.
Oh, what are you trying to do to me? Yeah.
She announced yesterday she's going to be voting for Harris.
Okay. So it's okay to be in the same room with her if that happens. All right. Well, yeah, it's a widespread phenomenon. As you were recounting the number of presidents, et cetera. Well, right. There's only one living Republican, which is
Trump still alive.
Yeah. So that's also interesting all by itself. And that sort of gets you around to, as crazy as Trump is, as despicable as he is, as destructive as he is, this is the 3rd time these idiots have nominated this guy. And they, by all appearances, will lose 2 out of 3 times with him. And the one time they win, not going to win and didn't win the popular vote. By the way, the other living president that they had who wouldn't show up because he's embarrassed by their current 3-time nominee also didn't initially win the popular vote. It's like the Republicans aren't popular and people don't like them. It's weird.
It's like that.
Yeah. So, gosh, I mean, when was
which
the last?
Shows a severe structural problem that we have that you can call the Senate.
Yes, true. Good point. When was the last time a Republican won the popular vote twice? Would have been, I guess, Reagan. So,
yeah,
been a while. Not since 1984 have they done that. What year is it now? Oh, not since the Los Angeles hosted the Olympics last time. As a matter of fact, since the Republicans have put together 2 popular vote victories for a single candidate. Well, seems weird that they dominated the modern political era nonetheless.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the Senate.
Yeah.
It's the fact that Republicans in the Senate who represent, I can't remember the exact ratios of how many people Republicans in the Senate represent as opposed to Democrats, but it's a lot less.
It is.
It's a lot less.
Yeah. And, because the Electoral College mirrors that structure, at least in part, you have the same problem with electing presidents. Like I said, there's been no Republican has won both the Electoral College and popular vote twice for 40 years. And we have 4 former presidents still alive and 3 of them speaking at the convention. And they have 1 and 0. So
yes,
that's pretty remarkable. And yet they cling to power as though they were entitled to it and do everything they can to, because everything is.
Well, they got the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Well,
so that's sort of the biggie. But, they have the filibuster. They have Mitch McConnell, who. Mitch McConnell.
Well, he's done enough as it is, but it happens up and down the ticket. The state legislatures have been, continuing to work and at rigging this system and gerrymandering and defying even state Supreme Court orders to redraw maps. They've changed the rules afterwards. They've done things, I think just recently the report. We've seen it in state after state. Either ignoring mandates to redraw the maps, stripping Democrats who somehow managed to become elected governor of their powers. Utah now a similar thing, ordered by the Supreme Court to redraw their maps and instead say, we're going to strip the Supreme Court of their jurisdiction to tell us that we have to do that. I mean, It's insane what they're doing to cling to power. But the only explanation for doing those things is that they want to cling to power despite the fact that it's not democratically legitimate to do so.
Right.
Although, they'll point to the fact we were elected under the rules and you delegated these powers to us and we're using them. But at the same time, this is a coup because Kamala Harris, because what? Because we've elected delegates to make a decision for us and they're deciding to make a change. That somehow is a coup, but you stripping everybody of actual powers versus our deciding a different person should be the nominee on which we'll all vote in November or sooner. That's somehow out of bounds, but this is what they do. Everything Democrats do is terrible and illegal. And all the terrible illegal things we do, I'm immune anyway. Okay. That's why nobody's speaking at your convention, even your former presidents. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Okay.
And it's why, once again, this is the most important election of our lifetimes. I know we have to keep saying that, but it keeps being true.
Right.
And it's true from the lowest level offices you will be voting for. We're preaching to the choir with the people who listen to Kagro in the morning.
Yes, true.
I saw a good line about preaching to the choir.
Oh?
I can't remember what it was, but anyway.
But it was good. That's the point. Yeah. Well, requires
talking to everybody in your social circle. It means talking to your family. It means, if you have the time, volunteering for your local Democratic Party and helping the city councils, the county councils, the library boards, everybody.
Yeah, right. And don't forget exactly how many people are facing this threat, right? Now is perhaps a good time to remember that, if you're on the board of the local library, if you're on the school board, if you're on whatever you'd think is beyond the reach of this kind of despicable politics, don't forget the last couple of years has been, no, it's actually quite the opposite. Proud Boys, militias showing up, threatening people, etc. You have to put a stop to this everywhere. And it's doable if all these red states that have voted for constitutional protections for abortion in the face of 30 plus, 50 plus years of conventional wisdom saying this will never work in a Republican state because everyone's pro-life. As it turns out, they have different thoughts.
As it turns out.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
They're trying to take your vote away. Don't let it happen. Don't let them take anyone's vote away. Work for this election like your life depends on it, because it might.
Yes. Well, right. Well, there was something about price of liberty, something, temporary vigilance, or was it eternal? I think it was eternal.
It was eternal.
That's right.
Yes, it was.
So it's eternally the most important election of our lifetime. It might be nice at some point to get back and look back and say, the second most compared to a different one, but also still important. But it can all fall apart very quickly if you don't treat everyone as important. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for stopping by, not only with reflections on the first night, but thank you for your service in watching. Yeah, it's difficult sometimes, but this is a pretty exciting convention to sit through. This is your reward for having to have sat through the Republican convention, I guess.
Yes, it does help a great deal. So
all right.
Join us on Daily Ghost tonight.
Okay, well, hang in there. We'll speak with you one more time in August, I guess, next week.
Radio.com.
Thanks, Joan. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. To Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
All right, time to hand things over, of course, to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. He didn't have a problem staying up for Joe Biden's speech. West Coast, right? What's he got on tap for you? Well, let's see. The Republicans filed their fourth lawsuit against Joe Biden's executive order to set up voter registration tables at federal agencies and offices. What a crime that must be. Stay tuned.